So I played a Modern tournament last night. For those of you that don't know, Modern is one of the most popular competitive formats for Magic the Gathering. Nobody in my town plays Standard at all. I can't even find a Standard tournament. And the next biggest format, or I guess the biggest format, is EDH Commander. And there are some competitive versions of that, but Modern is what I like to play. The fact that it's not as well, I would say it's not rotating, but they definitely ban cards and it feels like it rotates sometimes when the bans are big enough. We'll talk about that in a second. But anyways, I was thinking about what did I learn from last night and just kind of the last couple months getting ready for this tournament that I could talk to you guys about that would maybe give value to somebody that's thinking about getting into Modern, getting into competitive play. And I got like 5 tips for if you're trying to get into Modern, what I would recommend doing. All right, so let's start with tip number 1. Learn your sideboard cards. This is an incredibly complex way to play Magic. There are cards that are just so specific that do these things that like you never didn't even know this card existed, and it's exactly like the thing that like ruins your deck. So like there's cards like Trinisphere, there's these cards like the Brainstone thing where you just go on someone's deck and take out cards, but to do that you have to know which card to take out, you have to name it, so you have to know like what card in your opponent's deck you need to take out to cripple that deck. There's so many like things like that there's so many interactions that are really confusing and complex.
I summoned Pot of Greed to draw 3 additional cards from my deck!
That's not what it does! It doesn't do that. That is what it does. It doesn't. That's
what it do, Yugi!
So definitely learn your sideboard cards. I would say look at the top decks, look at the sideboard cards, and read them, try to figure them out, and when you don't know what to do, like why they're there, like watch a YouTube video of somebody that's going to explain sideboarding. Somebody that I like to watch on YouTube is Aspiring Spike. I'm not sure he does specific sideboard tech, but he'll usually talk about it at the beginning of his videos. And number 2, get your reps in, because this is how you learn the sideboard cards, but you also need to learn your deck. I would say get your reps in. You have to really play Modern again and again and again to understand how to play it competitively. If you're going to go to a tournament, you have to know your deck inside out. You can't be reading your own cards, Admittedly, that's what I have done a bit. I've had to kind of read my own cards and figure them out as I'm doing it, which is fine if you don't mind losing, which is fine. There's going to be a learning period, learning curve, and just know that. There's going to be a time where you're not going to be winning. You're going to just be figuring out, what hands do I keep? What do I mulligan? How does everything interact with itself, especially if you're going to go get a net deck, which we'll talk about in a second. You may not understand exactly how it all works. Maybe watch somebody on YouTube play that deck so you can understand how it works and just get the reps in. And tip number 3, proxy decks. I really highly recommend that you proxy a few of the top decks. You need to know just what the level of power is for the top decks that are in Modern right now. So if you don't know proxying, you just print out the cards on a piece of paper and just put another card in a sleeve and just put it over the card. You can even just write on the card. It's basically, you're poor, you can't afford these $80 cards. Just write on the card what the card is, get a piece of paper that has the rules for it if you need to, or memorize them, and proxy things out so you can play against those top tier decks. And you can also see which one you enjoy, so if you do eventually want to try and buy into one, you already know that, hey, I like this deck, I like this deck, I like how this one plays. Like for me, I like the Eldrazi deck, even if it's not always really a tier 1 deck. I like playing it, and even if you have like a tier 2, tier 3 deck, if you're really good at playing it, you can still beat somebody in a tier 1 deck pretty easily, if you know what you're doing and you got the reps in and all that stuff. Now to number 4, my tip is don't buy a budget deck. This is something that I did first off. I was like, hey, maybe I'll buy a budget deck. I bought a deck for $100. It was like a Hardened Scales ally deck. It's pretty cool. It's pretty competitive, but admittedly when I played it against my other decks, I have the red-white energy deck and my Eldrazi deck, it's definitely the weaker of the decks. It can still win a few matches, but I thought I would take that deck down to the card shop and try to win a few tournaments with it, get some store credit, and then try to build a better deck. But really, you're not going to consistently win tournaments. You can win some matches, and you may win a tournament, here or there, but if you're playing against other people that have competitive decks, I would say don't get a budget deck unless you're just doing it for fun and you're not trying to go play with other people that are taking it seriously and that are also competitive. And number 5, so this is an interesting one. So number 5 is don't buy cards that are going to be banned. And that's like hard to know, right, which cards are going to be banned, but usually people online will talk a lot about it. So how you know a card is going to be banned is that this is a card that if you didn't play, like say it's a black card like Grief, if you played a black in Modern, you had to play Grief basically. Like it's so good that you're almost penalized for not playing it. And Nadu was that card as well, where it's like there's also cards that like it's just so overwhelmingly good that you have to play it. You see it consistently winning, getting top 8, winning tournaments. The Ring is an interesting card because it hasn't been banned yet, but we're all pretty sure that it will be banned, and that's because it's almost in every single deck. There's versions of almost every single deck that has the Ring in it. The Ring is just this insanely powerful card that came out in the Lord of the Rings set, and it basically gives you immunity for a turn and then just draws you a whole bunch of cards. It's just like a crazy card that almost every single deck could play it, and a lot of the decks that are winning are playing it. So when there's a card like that that's just taking over the meta, usually that card will be banned. Usually that card will be very expensive, and then it'll be banned, and then usually the price will go down. So I would say try building a deck that maybe isn't the number 1 deck that's using these broken cards, because good chances are that's going to probably be banned at some point. I would say play a deck that you think you like, that's fun, try it out, proxy it first, but just be careful when you're buying cards. Don't spend a whole bunch of money on a card that is just most likely going to be banned in a few months. So yeah, that's my list. If you want to get into competitive Modern Magic the Gathering, it's a lot of fun, but it's also not so much fun when you're outclassed, you don't know exactly how to play your deck, you don't know what the sideboard cards do, you don't have a competitive deck that can compete with people's decks. It can get discouraging and you can just not want to play it anymore. So yeah, that's that. Also, a lot of people, just do it for fun and they're not trying to win everything. But I think a lot of people as well have that itch in them where it's like, even if you say you're doing it for fun, even if you go and you show up and you're like, I'm having fun, Magic is more fun when you win. It just is. I hate to say it, at least for myself. I still have fun when I lose, but it's just more fun when you win. It just is. That's like such like not the kind of message you want to give like a kid. Like it's only fun if you win. That's like such the wrong way to think about things, but I don't know. It is what it is. But thanks guys for watching. Let me know if you're into competitive Modern. Let me know what deck you're playing. What do you think the Ring is going to be banned? I absolutely think it will be. Yeah. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.